Perfect. Awesome. Well, thank you folks so much for joining us today. My name is Allison. I'm a franchising manager with Recipe Unlimited. I'm joined today by Melissa, who will be presenting with me, and Laura, who is graciously hosting and moderating. We're so excited to have you with us today to dig into the topic of due diligence. So let's review the agenda. So today's session should run about 35 minutes. We'll start off with a brief introduction to Recipe Unlimited, and then we'll dig right into the due diligence process. Chances are, if you're joining us today, you're evaluating a business opportunity. We'll teach you when due diligence occurs, who is involved, and how to get the very best information, what you should ensure you cover, and finally, why this all matters so much. So we can start it right off with our introduction to Recipe. So we are Recipe Unlimited, but you might know us by our former name, Cara Operations. We're the big guys on the scene when it comes to restaurant franchising. We've got more than 20 iconic Canadian brands in our portfolio. We've been franchising here for over 65 years. Our system sales annually are pretty impressive. I think it gives you a pretty good sense of our size and scale. And if you don't recognize us yet, you will by the next slide, which we can show you right now. Our brands span across the restaurant industry as a whole, from compact brands like New York Fries to full-scale drive-through QSR with Harvey's, all the way through faithful family dining like Swiss Chalet and Eastside Mario's. We've got casual brands like Kelsey's, and all the way up to premium concepts as iconic as the Keg. And you'll even find us in retail. The majority of our network is franchised, I would say about 80%. And honestly, that's really our secret. Hospitality is really all about people and connections, and partnering with local franchisees means that our restaurants are truly part of their community. So next, I will introduce you to the franchising team. So here we are. The four of us work together to manage the country, proudly representing all of our brands that we just showcased. Any of us can be reached at franchising@recipeunlimited.com, which you can also see written out there on the screen. And what I always like to let people know as well is we're happy to help folks at all stages of their franchising journey. Whether you woke up this morning and thought to yourself, I might like to run a restaurant one day, or whether this is something that you've even got experience in. All of us here are happy to speak to you at any point. Again, just franchising@recipeunlimited.com. So let's get into it. Melissa, I'll hand off to you.
Thanks, Alison. So yeah, just diving straight into it. The franchising application process is an extensive process. So before diving in, it's good to understand as to when due diligence occurs with existing franchisees. So the next slide here will give you a great overview of the franchising application process. And most franchisors follow something similar, but this is the way Recipe does it. And the running joke in the franchising industry is that if you're looking at getting into a franchise relationship, it's kind of like looking at getting into a marriage. And I'll say very cheekily, sometimes a franchise relationship lasts a little bit longer than a marriage. So yeah, it's quite an important process. And this application process is really the dating or the courting phase of. So you'll have a look here. It's quite simple. Step one is really when you're starting to investigate and you've decided that you'd love to own a franchise, and you start doing your research and you find a brand or a business that resonates with you and you submit an inquiry. The second part of the process is once we've received that inquiry as a franchisor, we'll reach out to you, have a video call or a phone call with you and start getting to know you and what you're looking at doing and what your plans are for the business. Step three is really where we would tell you a little bit more about ourselves as the franchisor company. So you get to learn a little bit about us and start to see if you think you want to marry us, right? So you'll learn about us as a company, you'll learn about the support, you'll learn about our requirements and our expectations, and just understand where you fit in and what your role and obligations would be. If at this stage we feel that you're going to be a great fit for our company and we've got an opportunity to match to you, we would at that point move you into this all-important due diligence phase of the process. And this is really when you're going to start to really get digging and starting to understand this business and seeing what it may mean to you and your lifestyle. Step 5 is then really getting you into a discovery day where we would get you into one of our training restaurants where you would shadow a general manager and really start to feel what running this business means practically. So really starting to understand and see yourself fitting into this business. With all of this information you've learned through this process, you would then go into the final stage of the process, which is really getting into an approval meeting with the brand leadership team, whereby they will meet you, get to know you, understand what you've learned through this process, and ultimately determine if you'll be a fit as a franchisee with us. Now, the wonderful thing about this process, you'll see, is there's no timelines to this. So there's no right or wrong as to how long this should take you. We really leave it with you in terms of understanding and being comfortable before you move into each next stage of the process. So now that we've understand where this fits in, it's good to understand who should be involved in the due diligence process. So no surprises here, it's you. So ultimately, this is the part of the process that's most important to you as a franchisee. And we can go to the next slide there, Laura. This is the part of the process where you start to dig and get to understand what this business is really about. So you as the owner operator, you need to satisfy yourself that you're starting to learn and understand what this business may mean for you. So definitely you need to be involved in this process. We would also advise anybody else that may be involved operationally from a business, if you've got some operational partners, to be involved, as well as any potential financial partners, because every stakeholder is going to have a different perspective. So we encourage everybody that's got a stake or an investment in this business to be part of this process so that you can get answers to your questions, and you may have some different perspectives that need answers. So the next piece of this puzzle as to who is involved in due diligence would be, of course, existing franchisees. So as great as it is to hear from me that you should buy a Harvey's and it's a great business, as you can see, I'm sitting in an air-conditioned home with a pretty comfortable leather seat, and I definitely don't wear non-slip shoes on a day-to-day basis. So sure, I'll have answers to your questions. I'll know what the answers are. But it's so great to speak to an existing franchisee to get the why behind those answers. So it's not good enough to just know what the answers are, but get the context of those answers. So the great part about steps 1 to 3 of our process is that we get to understand your profile, what you're looking at doing, so that we can hopefully match you to a relatable franchisee. So what that means is we understand sort of what markets do you want to be in. We understand what your management structure is going to be. Is it going to be you alone? Or is it going to be a family-run business? And then lastly, understanding your growth goals. Is it going to be one unit that you want to operate, or do you want to grow to 2 or 3 franchises in 5 years' time? So all of that information helps us match you to a franchisee that's kind of similar in nature, who can hopefully give you more customized answers to what your growth goals and your plans for your business are. And the great thing is we brief them ahead of the time, so they are expecting your call. So you don't need to feel shy about asking them quite in-depth and often quite sensitive information about their businesses. They've been in your shoes before and they are expecting your call. They're often going to have answers to questions you didn't even know you had. So it's a really great opportunity to just get to understand the business with our existing franchisees. The next part of the process is to understand, how do you go about getting this information really? And the best thing that you can do is obviously phone a franchisee. So that's a good starting point. So they are expecting your call. So you're welcome to phone them and start to get answers to your questions. The next best thing to that is to maybe set up a video call with the franchisee. Being a personable business, at least you get to see who you're talking to. So that's a great next step. But the absolute best way of getting this type of information you're going to need is schedule a meeting in restaurant with the franchisee. Go into their location. They're going to be so proud to take you on a tour, show you the back of house, show you everything about running the business. And you're really going to immerse yourself in your environment, see how you can fit in, see, you know, where the staff are, what are they doing? And all of that information is just going to be so much more valuable to you in terms of just understanding the business as you go about digging into what running this business really means. So that would be my word of advice. And again, just thinking about this as information gathering part of the process, but also relationship building. So as you get to know the franchisee, and hopefully it's in person, you're building relationships and networks, so that hopefully one day when you do open your restaurant, you've got somebody to call and who's going to be a sounding board and hopefully offer you some advice and answers to some of the queries you may have as you go through this process. With that being said, I'll now hand over to Alison to ask what information you should be getting out of this process.
Well, thank you so much, Melissa. So now that you've made a plan and exactly how you're going to go about it, let's make sure that you've got a full list prepared of questions to ask. So if we flip to the next slide, we can start off with some of the information. The first thing that you'll want to understand is naturally the financial picture of the business. Melissa and I get questions all the time about, what are sales, what are profits? And really the fact of the matter is that we're the wrong people to give you that information. We are salespeople. Our job is to be perpetually optimistic. And let's not forget either that we represent a vast portfolio of brands across the country. Sharing averages, I always like to say there's no such thing as the average restaurant. Each restaurant is unique, and the way that business structure kind of plays out is different. And I think it's important to get a little bit more detailed, and the way that we do this, again, is just pairing you with relatable people. You really want to get this information straight from the horse's mouth, from people who can tell you what these figures are, and more importantly, how to achieve them. When you ask about food costs, for example, you'll want to know more than just a figure. Waste has a lot of impact, and menu mix has impact. What do franchisees do to control food cost? I can tell you from my days in operations, there's all kinds of strategies. You could identify and target high margin menu items for sales competitions among servers, for example. And the folks you're dealing with ultimately have learned all of these things through trial and error. And proper due diligence can give you a head start in this and help you get your bearings as you make your business plan. And so that brings us to our next slide and kind of the next piece of the puzzle, the next kind of major thing you'll really want to make sure you dig in on. The financials and the P&L statement is really just telling you a story of your restaurant operations. In the restaurant industry, we don't live in spreadsheets. We live in operations. We live with our teams and with our guests face to face every day. So just as you dug in when asking about food cost, do the same when asking about labor. Ask about scheduling. Perhaps the restaurant can staff 5 servers to cover the dining room on a busy Friday, but they notice when they add a 6th server, tables are cleaned faster and they're able to get a 3rd dinner seating in, which really can impact, revenue in a positive way. What are the advantages of having more salaried managers versus balancing out with more hourly supervisors? Putting an associate on salary might add to the burden of fixed costs in the restaurant, but what value is added, and where is that balance really found? Is there more buy-in? Is there more business impact? Does it help with retention? Your due diligence partners will have the experience to answer this. Again, you can't live in a spreadsheet. Your business is in all of the little day-to-day systems. Learn about PARs and prep. And if you don't know what that means, especially write that down and make sure you ask, well, what is a PAR and how do you use that to guide your prep? Ask about vendor relationships, ask about order dates, ask about billing cycles, and ask about local marketing. How do these folks connect with their communities and motivate guests to come out when there is always plenty of competition out there? From a franchisor perspective, we take care of any type of national marketing for you, and we do a phenomenal job of that. But again, the secret to franchising is being part of the community, and that comes from you. So how can you do that? And what types of things have our existing franchisees seen that are successful for them? And there's one last major category that you'll want to ask about. And that is about the franchisor relationship. What is it like to partner with Recipe? And as much as, Melissa and I say that we're not the right people to ask about operations and financials, we're definitely not the right people to ask about this. You want to know from people who are our partners. How was the training program? Did they feel ready when they opened their business? What should you expect during the opening process? And, ongoing, have they felt supported? Really ask all of those questions about the good, the bad, and the ugly, so you can really go into your business opportunity with eyes wide open. So we can talk next about why this is so important. If you're a note taker, you've probably filled a few pages by now. Due diligence really is quite the undertaking. What is all this effort really for? It's about starting out on the right foot. It's about making sure that you understand before committing. A standard franchise term is 10 years, and most folks will renew for an additional 10 years. It's 20 years. That could be one of the longest relationships of your life. The due diligence process should give you time to self-reflect. And it's okay if you go through those steps that Melissa showed in the beginning and it's a no. We believe in franchising that no is the second best answer you can get. A yes is always exciting. But if it's a no, isn't it better to find that out in advance? Due diligence is ultimately that first concrete action that you will take for your business. And the experience that you'll undergo in due diligence we'll help you know if this is the right opportunity for you. This is not the part of the process that you want to rush and just kind of check the box. You really want to dig in this, because this is that first step. Is this what you think it will be? So let's wrap it up. I want to thank you again so much for your time. We definitely want to make sure that we leave some space for questions, and we've left a little bit of a buffer in here. Please type any questions that you have into the chat box. And if you want to connect about anything at all, we encourage you to email us. The address is there on the screen again, franchising@recipeunlimited.com. We are also on LinkedIn. We actually have a blog post coming up about this very same topic, just delving into the due diligence process. So if you're following us on LinkedIn, or if you join us at franchising@recipeunlimited.com, we can make sure that you get a notification for that blog. Maybe you forgot to take notes. Well, then that could be a good backup for you. So I just want to say we've really enjoyed sharing this information with you. Can we have some slides of this PowerPoint? I love that. Oh, I'm glad you liked it. We have been recording this, and I believe we're going to be sending out the full recording to everybody afterwards. But yeah, we've really enjoyed sharing this with you. When Melissa and I work with candidates, sometimes the due diligence step feels like letting the bird out of the nest, because at that point in the process, we like you and we want to work with you. But we really can't do this part for you. It's a rite of passage that you need to take when you're evaluating a franchise opportunity. So again, we'll just leave a couple minutes for any other questions. Let me see here. I think I might have missed some in the chat earlier. Can we have, I see the note-taking icon too. That's great, Ivan, thank you. And we have a question. In the Q&A, I see here one. When do you deliver FDD? Is that in due diligence? So FDD, I believe, is delivered essentially after your approval, when we're actually doing the documentation, when we're sending out things like your the full disclosure package, kind of comes after that. Due diligence takes place before FDD, which is a great question about timing. Yeah, and yes, again, the recording will be sent out after this meeting.
So I see a question here from Sean. What is the next step? Well, Sean, I'm not sure where you are in the process, but yeah, step one is really to email us at franchising@recipeunlimited.com. Tell us what you're interested in, what you want to learn more about, and one of our franchise managers will gladly schedule some time to get chatting and get dating you.
I love that analogy, Melissa. Every time you talk about it, it makes me giggle. It's not. I think it's definitely a really good comparison too.
Yeah, absolutely, absolutely. And relationships all about trust, and that's what franchising is all about. It's just a mutually beneficial relationship, really.
Yeah, awesome.
So quarantine's no problem. We could do Ivan, I see you said we're in quarantine. We can do a video call, just like we're doing right now. Nothing's going to stop us post-COVID. We've got all these things in place to be able to communicate with you. So yeah, we'd be happy to schedule a phone call or a video call with you just to discuss anything you want to talk about in terms of our franchising opportunities.
Awesome. So we'll just give it maybe about a minute more in case there's any other questions that come up.
I always look at these slides and I don't know why we do these webinars at lunchtime, because they make me so hungry every time.
Yeah, we shouldn't have left this big burger right on the screen.
I think that's why Ivan wants the slides. Just taste it.
Awesome. Well, folks, that is all for us today. If there are any questions that we haven't gotten to, please, again, always reach out at franchising@recipeunlimited.com. Oh, wait, there might have been one more sneak in here. Okay.
Thanks, Manjula. Thanks for attending.
Okay. Thank you so much, folks. So we do have a video to share, just a 2-minute video as a bit of an outro to just give you an overview of Recipe as your franchise partner. And yeah, just this video will play on the outro, and we can all go about our day and have an excellent Thursday. Thanks again, folks. Appreciate it.
Bye.
Bye. Thank you so much, folks. You have a great day, and we look forward to hearing from anyone who wants to chat.